For the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about navigating the job search process, in particular talking about how to pull together a resume and just some other general hints and tips that will hopefully set you on your way and get you started in your job search journey. So first of all, we'll cover off a little bit about resume writing. A strong resume should be a good representation of your background, your skills, attributes, and also applicable to the role you're applying for. And by that I don't mean to have a different resume for every different role you apply for, because what's really relevant to you guys is the skills that we've been talking a lot about this morning. What are your skills and how are they relevant to the role that you're applying for? When we're thinking about writing our resume, there's not really any set rules. There are things probably that you can leave off, you can avoid, but there are no firm rules about how to write a resume. Generally speaking, a busy line manager, hiring manager, HR manager or recruiter is probably not going to have time to read 10-page resumes, but to keep it succinct and 3 to 4 pages max is probably a good length of resume. Be sure when you've completed writing your resume to format, spell and grammar check. And I know it sounds simple, but I can't tell you how many times on a resume I've read attention to detail without the attention to detail, where something hasn't been spell checked, for example. We're going to talk a little bit about what's probably what we consider a fairly generic structure for a resume, but a really good place to start. So a typical resume would include your name and contact details, your education, what are your key skills and attributes. Again, those skill sets are important. Then we talk about employment history and references. And you can include additional information such as what your interests and hobbies are, memberships, affiliations, and relevant to lots of you, publications and other general attributes. So next, on the next slide, we've got an example, and it's a bit hard to see, I'm sorry, of what a sort of generic, again, resume should look like. So just as we've talked about in the previous slide, what needs to be on the resumes. So I don't know if everyone can see, but on the top there we've got education. So that should be, personal information. So right at the top, who you are, where you live, how to contact you should all be up there in your name. And then straight under that, we move into education. It's really important to put what the title of your degree is, the dates of when you completed the degree and where you completed it. Now, I apologise if some of this sounds fairly simple, but we don't always see what we need to see on a resume, and these things are really important for you to be able to, for a line manager or a hiring manager to understand who you are and to get a sense of who you are as well from your resume. So just after the education is where you might start putting your professional experience. Now everything needs to be, again, in chronological order. So your most recent position goes first and so on. And in there, you need to include in that your key responsibilities of that role. Now, quite often, if you wanted to put a separate area on your resume that was just clearly addressed your key skills and attributes, a great place to put that is straight under the education. Now, just a point about the education too. Sometimes we see on resumes, University of Melbourne, PhD, and then lots of big words. Now, I'm not a scientist by trade, and I would say that quite a lot of hiring managers or recruiters are not. Just, if you can, put down the subject of your PhD in layman's terms, so the person can get a sense of the area of study and again, making it relevant to the jobs that you're applying for. So it's also good to have under each role, maybe some key achievements listed. Not pages and pages, just 2 or 3 key achievements in that time. Okay, and so you can see when we move on to the second page there that, again, it's just what's your position been, what are the dates that you worked, and what were the key duties and responsibilities. And then you can put some whatever additional training or other courses that you've completed that are relevant to your job search that, again, have provided you with skills to undertake a certain role. And then we put any sort of memberships, affiliations. It's a good place to put publications too at the end of your chronological work history. And then obviously references. So my suggestion when it comes to references is that you put, you have to let your referees know that you're putting them on your resume and you're actively applying for work. You know, one referee might get 2 or 3 plus calls if you're actively on a job search. So it's just courtesy to let them know that you're doing that. My other suggestion is to put something along the lines of referees available on request. So that way you know when your referees are about to be called and you can give them a heads up. It's just courtesy and it'll make the job process a little smoother. Does anybody have any questions about that resume template? I don't know if you can see it or have anything specific you wanted to know. Yes, Julia.
Could I ask you to elaborate? You mentioned about just underneath education, if we wanted to add in about core competencies, is it what you said?
Yeah, key skills and attributes. So if you think about all of the skills that you have that you've learnt during a PhD or your university degree or any even part-time jobs you've had while you've been studying, whether it be customer service or working in a call centre or whatever it may be, there are lots of skills that you take away from each of those times in your life that would be really relevant in your job search. So I think if I was starting out on my journey of work, I'd be putting my education there because it's really important. And then I'd be putting a title that says key skills and attributes and be listing everything that I think I have key strengths in. So we talked before about attention to detail is a good one. There's lots of things that are transferable skills, project management skills like you talked about before. All of those things are relevant and a good place to put that. Yeah, Sean.
As a recruiter, you must have lots of CVs come across your email daily.
Correct.
So what's the sort of, when you're looking at them, how do you use them? What makes things jump out at you versus sort of on the keep later pile? What are those things that you think, oh, that's interesting?
Yeah, sure. I think, like I said before, our roles are really busy and we can literally look at hundreds and hundreds of resumes every week. I think those resumes that stand out to us are ones that are clear and easy to read because, like I said, unfortunately, and I understand if I'd written 50 publications, I'd want to put them all on my resume because I'd want the world to know that that's what I did and that's really great and maybe that will help me get a job. But honestly speaking, hiring managers are time poor and so are recruiters. We're not going to read every single publication that you ever did in any detail. We're going to know you did it, that's great, but we're going to be interested in those key skills. Yeah? So, sorry, just to finish Sean's point, I think a resume that's set out like this, I can clearly see what your education history is. I can clearly see what you think your skills and attributes are. Then I might marry it up with some of your work experience and then I'd probably give you a call because I can see what you've done. I know that you're going to be relevant for 50% of the roles that we recruit for. If I have to read lots of scientific jargon that's hard for me to understand or that I have to go away and Google, I might put that on I might look at it later pile, to be honest, because I think, that wouldn't be exclusive to me either. Like I said, if you're applying for a role directly within a large organisation that has a HR manager or a talent manager, they'll be doing exactly the same. You've got to make yourself stand out from the crowd a little bit, and some of these basic things will help you do that.
I just wanted to ask, with the education section, should you put in like special things you've done or awards or stuff, or do they just subtract from the key message?
Yep, I definitely include awards, and you can do a couple of different things. So under the education part, you can put achievements. So 1 or 2 things again that you've achieved during the course of your study, or if you have a section at the end, additional training, awards, memberships, you could put any awards that you've received down there as well. But really in the education, you want the title of the degree, where you did it, when you did it, and if it's a PhD or something like that, we want to see the topic of the thesis. Yeah.
We've got another question just here.
Just on that, I think you mentioned, as you said right now, write the title of your thesis, but theses are often quite narrow. So would you say, hey, this is the specific scientific title and I work on antibiotic resistance, but on Seek and stuff like that, on the job ads, it says things like biology or chemistry, and that's very vague, especially coming from a very scientific background. So where's the line and what keywords do you put in?